Have you ever watched Grey's Anatomy? Have you ever wondered during those scenes when they're in the operating room and the characters are talking about their love lives or one another or what's going on in the whole hospital, that somehow the surgery still is taking place? Well, the reason that's happening is because often in the operating room, there's an individual present who's basically reading the surgeon's mind, and that's the surgical technologist. My name is Dane Matthews, and I'm the director of the Sterile Processing and Surgical Technology programs at Malcolm X College, and I'd like to take a moment to tell you a little bit about these fields. So first, what could you get out of becoming a surgical technologist? Well, I'd like to discuss some of the jobs data for surgical technology here in Cook County, Illinois. So if we look at this year, 2021, there was 149 jobs posted in Cook County for surgical technologists a month. Those jobs were split up amongst 94 employers that were competing for these postings in the area just from January of 2021 to February of 2021. If we look at the average monthly postings per month in ratio to the average monthly hires in Cook County from January to February, that was 220 available spots to 47 spots being filled. In the last 5 years in Cook County, there's been 3 programs that have produced surgical technology completions for students. And the average earnings in Cook County for surgical technologists right now is $52,455. If you're talking about going back to school for an associate's degree program, that's a decent wage in Cook County for an entry-level position once completing. So what are the requirements to becoming a surgical technology student at Malcolm X College? Well, the first requirement is to fulfill these prerequisite courses. Biology 120, which is 3 credit hours and is medical terminology. Biology 121, which is Biology 1, which is 5 credit hours. Biology 226, which is Anatomy and Physiology 1, which is 4 credit hours. And any college level math, with Math 118 being the recommended course, which can take 3 to 4 credit hours depending on which math course a student chooses. Students also must be eligible to take English 101 and complete the selective admissions application and interview process in order to be accepted into the program. So what does this program layout look like to the student? Well, if we look at our curriculum for our inaugural cohort, they will start in the fall of 2021, and their 2 core curriculum courses will be Intro to Surgical Technology and Principles and Practice of Surgical Technology. The Intro to Surgical Technology course will introduce the student to the field of surgical technology in a didactic or lecture manner. The lab course, Principles and Practice, is where students will begin to learn the basic skills of aseptic technique. That second semester, in the spring of 2022, students will have Surgical Procedures 1, where they will begin to learn about surgical procedures in the entry-level student services. So general surgery, diagnostic procedures, and those types of things that are the building blocks of surgery will be the surgical procedures that students will focus on in this course. That'll be a 4 credit hour course. In addition to that course in the spring semester, students will also have a lab course again. In this course, they will take the basic aseptic skills that they learned in the first semester and start to put them into routine practices of certain segments of the day of a surgical technologist or a procedure. So they will start to put these procedures into a segment of setting up for the surgical procedure. Portions will be intraoperative care of patients or preoperative care or postoperative care, but they will start to learn all of these segments of routine practices that go into the day of a surgical technologist. In the summer semester, students will then take Surgical Procedures 2, will be the next set of surgical services that the building block course, surgical procedures that they learned in the first course will build upon. So some of that information that they learned in general surgery will be very detrimental to their success in understanding other surgical services. In addition, in this summer semester, the lab course that students take will take all of those segments of routines that they have learned and transition into actual mock surgical procedures. So students will begin to practice the preoperative setup portion of the case, the intra-op, post-op, and turnover portions of the day, all into one continuous mock surgical procedure. After that course, students should be ready to enter the clinical environment. That next semester, they will start to take for their lecture course the most complex surgical services, things like open heart surgery and neurosurgery. And in their lab course, they will transition from working in the lab to working in the clinical environment under the supervision of a surgical technologist or nurse, or both. At this time, students will begin to work with surgeons directly and learn in an actual surgical setting. In the final semester of this program, students will have a career readiness for surgical technology course. This course will focus on prepping students for the certification exam to ensure their success, as well as for the hiring process. So professional development such as interview preparation, resume preparation, cover letters, networking, and all of those types of things will not only be discussed, but also there will be some mock practice of these interviews and other aspects of starting a career in the health sciences. Because most of our students in these programs, this may be their entry into the healthcare field. At that time, students will escalate from the previous semester where they will go to their clinical site 3 days a week to now going 4 days a week. So by the time a student has gone through this entire semester, they are almost full-time practicing surgical technologists ready to enter into the field. That totals up our core curriculum credit hours to 54 credit hours. Now, along with some of these semesters, students will have some co-curricular courses, starting with the very first semester where they will have Anatomy and Physiology 2 and English 101. The second semester, their co-curricular course will be microbiology, which is Biology 233. This course will help instill in students an understanding of the importance of infection prevention for surgical technologists and in the operating room in general. The summer semester, students will only have the core curriculum. And in the second to last semester of the program, students will have their Sociology 201 course, which is the human diversity element of the associate's degree program for surgical technologists at Malcolm X. So that's what the surgical technology program will look like to students and the layout of the courses that they'll have. This should have students prepared to enter the field, ready to work with plenty of practice. In addition, between those fall and spring semesters, our intentions at this point is to switch students to a different location so that they're exposed to different surgeons, different surgical procedures, and get a big variety of cases under their belt before they go off on their own. So this is what this kind of looks like in a little bit of a different way. So during the fall and spring semesters, students will have 12 credit hours worth of classes. Summer will be 6, and then again in the final fall and spring semesters, 12 credit hours again. This will add up to a total of 56 experiential learning contact hours at the end of the program. So students will get a decent amount of exposure to surgical technology in the field. I'd like to offer a trigger warning for this next slide. This next slide has one small surgical photo in it. If anybody's uncomfortable with these types of images, it may be best to kind of look away and just listen for a moment. So one of the biggest misconceptions that I see as a surgical technologist in popular culture is that nobody really knows what we do. Some people have never even heard of surgical technologists, and we are, pretty much the backbone of the operating room, if you ask me. Not that I'm biased or anything like that, but surgical technologists function as another pair of hands for surgeons. In an ideal surgeon-surgical technologist relationship, this happens without much prompting, or at the least for common tasks and procedures, surgeons shouldn't have to ask for the psychomotor response to certain things happening in the procedure from the surgical technologist. How do we do that? Well, first we anticipate. We anticipate from the moment we arrive at the hospital in the morning for the rest of the day's cases by making sure that we, when we set up for our first case, we don't pull just for that case. We're going to pull the supplies for the next cases too, so that we can turn over the room for surgeons as fast as possible in between procedures. We also anticipate within the surgical procedure itself, the next step of the procedure, the next thing that the doctor is going to need. We should always be preparing for that, and not just the surgeon, but also our circulator who we're working with, and also sometimes the anesthesia staff who we're working with. We also need to anticipate the needs of those individuals as well. The next thing that we do is we prioritize. So now that we've anticipated what's going to happen in the day and what's going to happen in the case and what may happen for the patient, we now need to prioritize making sure that what the surgeon, the patient, the surgical team, and everyone else needs next is actually the thing that's ready next. Finally, as we're doing this anticipating and prioritization, we are also making sure to advocate for our patients. We're watching to make sure that no one in the room is accidentally contaminating anything, that no rules of aseptic technique are broken, and things like that. So if you look at the core of what surgical technologists do, we anticipate, prioritize, and advocate. Well, what's a day in the life like? Passing instruments is often the thing that people who do know about surgical technologists associate with us, because when you watch shows like Grey's Anatomy and MASH, you hear them saying knife, sponge, or something like that, and then you see another person in the room that's handing the person that. So people think that's all we do. Well, what we actually do is a decent amount of the preoperative preparation, although everyone in the OR does their own role of preoperative preparation for the surgery and for this patient. Then we help with the intraoperative execution, and we also assist in the postoperative patient care and turnover. So surgical technologists spend their day executing perioperative tasks for the operating room, the sterile field, the surgeon, and the surgical patient. The overall responsibilities that are involved in this are to anticipate the needs, ensure infection prevention, ensure no instrumentation, equipment, or other foreign objects are retained by the surgical patient at the end of their surgical procedure by working together with the circulating nurse in the room to count and account for everything that's been opened and used during the procedure, to help with postoperative patient care, and then to turn over the operating room, ensuring that all the instrumentation, equipment, and supplies are returned to where they're supposed to be, and that those items are also available for the next patient that's going to be in that room. Is that all? Well, no, not at all. Surgical technologists also take varying amount of on-call shifts following their shifts and on weekends. This offers us an opportunity often to kind of determine how much our paycheck is. We get to say to each other sometimes, hey, I don't really want to take my call this weekend. Do you want to take my call? Absolutely. I want to make extra money so that I can, save for a house or do whatever it is that's working for me or not working for me in my life and take care of it financially. And in addition, it's important to note that surgical technologists are not just found in healthcare facilities. They can also be found in veterinary clinics, vein clinics, hair restoration clinics, management roles in sterile processing departments, and like myself, in academic settings as program directors and educators. So what are some common pathways for professional growth after surgical technology for those students who decide they want to continue their education? Well, a popular set of next steps would be surgical assisting, nursing, healthcare administration, and education or training. So once you get this surgical technology career down pat, there are lots of places that you can go from there if you want to continue to do new things and learn new skills. Well, what about sterile processing? Sterile processing is a basic certificate program, and let's talk about some jobs data for sterile processing in Cook County as well. Well, job postings in Cook County per month for sterile processing was 90. This was split up amongst 63 different employers from January of 2021 to February 2021. The monthly postings per month were 139 to the 49 monthly hirings. There were 4 programs in Cook County that produced sterile processing technicians in the last 5 years. And the average earnings in Cook County for sterile processing, sorry, I see that typo there, is $39,950 per year. Well, what are the admissions requirements to enter the sterile processing program at Malcolm X College? Students must be eligible to take English 101 and must complete the same special admissions application and interview process that students will go through for surgical technology as well. In addition, because this program starts its clinical rotation much sooner than surgical technology students do, as admissions requirements, sterile processing students are required to have and maintain a record of immunizations and vaccinations, and their titers are required to verify their immunity. So what immunizations or vaccinations are required? Measles, mumps, rubella, varicella, hepatitis B, a 2-step PPD skin test or a quantiferon gold or chest x-ray is required to verify that the student is negative for tuberculosis. A tetanus diphtheria vaccination booster has to be received within the previous 9 years, and that season's current flu vaccination is required as well. The exciting news about this program is that we have recently expanded the program to a full-time and a part-time program. So students will have the option to either complete this program in one semester by taking both of these classes concurrently, which equals up to a total of 16 credit hours between the lecture sterile processing course and the sterile processing experiential learning clinical/lab course. Or students will be able to take it part-time and split it up into 2 semesters and just take 1 class per semester if they're working and that works better for their schedule. Those who will complete this program in 1 semester will begin their clinical rotations in the 5th week of the program. So we're going to hit the ground running in this program. So this expansion is going to allow us to enroll more students and increase the amount of cohorts that we take in from 2 to 4 per year. So what's a day in the life of a sterile processing technician like? Well, sterile processing techs are the backbone of any healthcare facility. They're responsible for caring for infection prevention, quality assurance, and monitoring and record keeping in the department. The sterile processing department is the lifeblood of the hospital because everything originates in sterile processing at some point or another, whether it be in the storage area or in the sterilization area. Sterile processing techs may work in different areas of the department every day, depending on what facility they choose to work at. And their overall responsibilities, in addition to infection prevention, are inventory control, instrument inspection, testing, monitoring, and documenting of equipment and function. In addition, sterile processing technicians may be responsible for coordinating with and ensuring that supplies, sterile supplies mostly, are delivered to nearly every department in the facility, as well as sterilizing instruments for satellite locations and cleaning equipment for other areas like blood pressure monitors and things like that you may see on the floor in the hospital. Is that all? Well, no. In addition to hospitals, sterile processing technicians can be found at surgery centers, working in agency or travel jobs, and other healthcare facilities. There are multiple standalone sterilization facilities coming to Chicagoland area very soon. And these representatives from these facilities have already contacted Malcolm X College about their hiring needs because they know we have students that are graduating and they would like to just reach out directly and get to know you. So what are some common pathways for professional growth that can be found at the city colleges, but not necessarily at Malcolm X College for sterile processors after the basic certificate program? Well, here at Malcolm X, we have the surgical technology program and the medical billing and coding program that is a natural progressive next step for some sterile processing technicians. But at city colleges in general, we also have supply chain and logistics and quality assurance, which are some natural next steps for sterile processing technicians to take interest in, because they are things that are related to their everyday job duties that they've already built up skills at in the sterile processing department. So who are we? As a team, I myself am Dane Matthews. I'm the director of both of these programs. Our clinical coordinator for both of these programs is Ms. Stacy Bazari, and our instructor for both of these programs is Ms. Nicole McClelland. Between all of us, you have a wealth of experience, decades of knowledge about surgical technology and sterile processing. We've all got different connections to try to help you network with, and we all have different strengths to really help students get a comprehensive attention from the staff at Malcolm X College. So please fill out an application, and we look forward to talking to you and interviewing you soon. Take care.